Hi, and welcome to generating normal maps in 3dsMax from Focal Press and 3dforgames.com. First of all, here's a brief overview of what we'll be covering. The feature we will be using is render to texture. This will be used to make a normal map from a high resolution mesh to a lower resolution mesh. A normal map is a texture used to give an object the appearance it has a lot more geometry detail than it actually has. It does this by storing the high-res model's surface normal lighting information in the RGB channels of a texture. When this is applied to the low-res model with the correct shader, it will make the low-res model look very similar to the high poly, but render a lot quicker, making it more game engine friendly. We will be generating a tangent map. This is the map most commonly used in the games industry and is mainly blue and pink in colour. Here is an example of a tangent space normal map. Now, let's get started. What you should have is two models, a high poly source mesh and a low poly target mesh that has been unwrapped. The low poly mesh has to be unwrapped for this to work. Also, the meshes must be aligned properly over each other. For this scene, we will be using a basic tyre. The high poly is on the right, the unwrapped low poly to the left, and in the middle a copy of both for generating the normal map, placed on top of each other. To the far right, a low poly with the normal map already applied. Delete the example meshes and leave the source and target mesh. Select the low poly mesh and press 0 to bring up the Render to Texture dialog, or go to the main menu, Rendering, Render to Texture. First, we see the general settings. We will change the render settings. Open the drop-down list and select the top option, Default Scanline Renderer. Under Projection Mapping, select and pick a new window. Add Targets will pop up. Choose the high poly mesh by its name, in this case high res tyre. Now click on Options beside the pick button to bring up a new window titled Projection Options. The default settings should be OK, but just make sure the following is selected: Method, Ray Trace, Use Cage. Resolve Hit is at its furthest and that Ray Miss is checked. Normal map space is set to tangent, the orientation is right, green. Under mapping coordinates, select Use Existing Channel as the object has been unwrapped. Add a normal map to the output selection by clicking Add and choosing Normals Map from the list. The selected Elements Common Settings will appear. This is where we name the output texture and its location, by selecting the icon to the right of the file name and browsing to the desired location. You can also pick the texture size by selecting from the options. I'll go for a 512 by 512 this time. It's useful to bake the maps at a smaller size than needed at first to iron out any problems, before committing a long time to baking a really large map. Adjust the cage to ensure it is covering the high poly mesh closely and that no areas are overlapping. This can be done manually, just like editing a mesh. It may be easier to reset the cage and adjust the push values if the automatic cage has exploded too much. Once all of this is done, press Render. This will then bake the map for you and save it in the specified location as the chosen file type. A warning window will appear as we have not specified a target map slot in the shader. This is OK to ignore. Press Continue. The texture will render as a grayscale map. Open the output file or reload it into the scene to see it as a tangent map. To do this, press M to bring up the material editor. Select the shader to use. Under the Maps list, tick the box to the left of the bump slot to activate it. Increase the value from 30 to 100. Now click on the button None to the right and select Normal Bump from the list. Click on the new None button that appears beside Normal and select Bitmap from the list. Browse to the location of the output tangent map and select it. The map will now be loaded. Press Go to Parent twice to go back to the main material editor screen. Now left click and drag from the shader image to the mesh that you want to assign the texture to. If the normal map does not appear in the viewport, go to the main menu, Views, Show Materials in Viewport as Hardware Display with Maps to display the normal map in the viewport. What you should now have covered is the process of baking and applying normal maps in 3dsMax. One thing I will go over now is how to edit a normal map in Photoshop to fix any errors or artifacts from the baking process if they cannot be fixed here. The example map is of a character's head. It's best to keep the editing of a normal map to a minimum. You will need the NVIDIA Normal Map Filter plugin for this to normalize the texture when you are done. Here I have the original normal map straight from being baked. Notice the faceted look around the ears and the stronger colours around the lips and eyes. Now, a little about how the texture was cleaned up. I created a new layer and selected the brush tool on a low opacity, about 25%, and then used the colour picker to select the nearest colour to the bad areas and painted over them. When the results were acceptable, I flattened the image and used the NVIDIA plugin to normalise the texture. This is found in Filter, NVIDIA Tool, Normal Map Filter, once it's installed. Then select Normalise Only to the right and select OK. The adjusted map should now be ready for use. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next guide. For support with this video and any of the others in the range, log on to www.3d4games.com/forum and your questions will be answered once you've logged in. Good luck and goodbye.